Menifee UCC is a lively, loving, open, and affirming church. A church that follows Jesus' great commandments. Love God, love others, love yourself. A church that welcomes everyone. A church that speaks truth to power. And a church that works for justice more than just us. Today's sermon was recorded on December 2nd, 2018. Stand Up and Raise Your Heads by Reverend Sarah Gomez-Lorraine.
Our reading this morning comes from Luke 21, verses 25 through 36. There will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and on the earth distress among nations, confused by the roaring of seas and the waves. People will faint from fear and foreboding of what is coming upon the world, and for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to take place, stand up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Then he told them a parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. As soon as they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is already near. So also, when you see these things taking place, you know that the kingdom of God is near. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Be on guard, so that your hearts are not weighed down with dispensation and drunkenness with worries of this life, and that day does not catch you unexpectedly like a trap. For it will come upon all who live on the face of the whole earth. Be alert at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that will take place, and to stand before the Son of Man. Blessed be the inspired words of God. Amen. Amen. Jacob's already got his hand up. Jacob, what stands out to you?
Well, I already know something about the end of the world.
All right. Yeah, happy Advent. Right?
But he basically is saying before the end of the world, everything has to take place. And apparently when the end of the world happens, heaven will shake. And heaven will pass away as well, I guess. Wait. I thought if the end of the world found in heaven, I'd be safe. But apparently, I was wrong. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you for that, Jacob. Anybody else? Yes, June?
The first part says there will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and on the earth distress among nations, confused by the roaring of the sea and the waves. That kind of sounds like global warming.
Ooh, kind of sounds like global warming, right? Hashtag not a myth. Yeah. Anybody else? Thank you, June. What stands out to you? Yes.
Well, I always think that when we have horrible things happening like fires and earthquakes, and when all these people are dying or killed or suffering, I thank God for the people that believe. Because the ones that don't believe, they have no hope. And God will help us get through anything. Even if it's death, we have something to look forward to.
So in the destruction, gratitude for the hope. All right. And that's the sermon. Yeah, I know. Seriously. Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said. I'm always surprised, and I love hearing what you're gleaning, because oftentimes that reaffirms to me what God has asked me to speak on. So Luann, thank you for that reaffirmation. Marcia.
I have a question. For those people who may not believe in God or Jesus, but are really good people, is that bad for them? I mean, are they going to be amongst the ones who don't make it?
That's a good question. And if you ask me, I'm going to rely on a theologian that we actually mentioned last week, by the name of Bishop John Shelby Spong, and I resonate with what he says. And he says that the world religions, I'm paraphrasing at this point, that the world religions, including Christianity and Hindu and Buddhism and whatnot, they are not the entirety of truth in knowing God. I practice Christianity because it's what I've come to understand as a way of walking. My hope is that God is far beyond the Christian understanding, and that those who are walking in many other faith traditions, my hope is that God honors them in their walk as well. These world religions, I honor the tradition of Christianity and I walk in the path of Christianity, but I don't think that Christianity is the inclusiveness of the mystery of God. So my hope, to answer your question, the world according to Sarah, with the help of influence of Bishop Spong, is I trust that God sees all who have the right intent in their heart.
And you know what that's based on? God created everybody. So why would he say, well, we'll save these, but we won't save those? I believe that, like you said, anybody that is a good person, and even though their faith is different, God created them. He's not going to just create people just to destroy them. I don't think.
I certainly hope not. No.
God doesn't make people just to hate them.
Well said, June. God doesn't make people to hate him. Jacob.
Maybe he's talking about he's going to leave behind all the bad people. Like he's going to leave down everybody down here.
Maybe.
All the way down here.
For those who can't see, Jacob's pointing to the floor.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder sometimes if, we have this construction of that heaven is up, hell is down, and I wonder if there's some truth in the center there. I lean into the mystery of God.
Or timing and conditioning. It could be you got a promotion at work, you're in heaven, and you got a car accident, you're in hell.
It's true. And in the same token, you got a promotion, and that could be hell. Yeah, context. So I find this a very interesting lectionary that's being put forth. As the United Church of Christ, we follow a lectionary series. And so today, I'll be honest with you, I was looking forward to Advent and it being the Christ child and Mary and the story. And when I'm reading about the end of the world, I thought, what? What is this? And what we've already discussed reminds me of a few weeks ago, I was blessed to be in a Buddhist temple in LA. And while I was there, the Buddhist priestess that was there and was telling us, and she said, she was talking about Buddha and the teachings of Buddha. And there's many different denominations and different sects of Buddhism as well. But as we sat in the temple, as we were sitting on our pillows and being in meditation and being with ourselves, she went on to talk about the teachings of Buddha. And she said the way that she's understood Buddhism, and I find that there's truth in this as well, kind of what we're talking about. If there was a statue of Buddha in the center of the room, and everyone stood to the sides of this statue, spoke their truth about what they saw from Buddha, would it be the same from everyone? No. But is it truth for what they're saying?
It's their truth.
Right, exactly. That's how they've come to understand the teachings of Buddha. And so as we look into the Christian denomination, as we look into these world religions, as we think about what's called I'm messing it up now, right? Pride goeth before the fall. Eschatology. Hi, Day. Come on in. This end of the world. Who's going to get saved? Who's not going to get saved? Standing before the Son of Man. We've got a huge world out there. And the truth of it is that if I was born in a different place, a different geographic location, I very well may not understand Jesus or be a Christian in the way that I follow the teachings of Christ. I might be another faith tradition. I hope that I would have a good heart still. I would have a pure intent. And as I've sat in mosques and as I have sat in Buddhist temples, and spoken with my Sikh brothers and sisters and heard them speak of their faith tradition, I am inspired by the teachings. And I find that as I've grown in my understanding of these world traditions, it has grounded me, not in my certainty of Christianity, but my appreciation of the teachings of Jesus and the embracing of many other ways of seeing God. Because we're all looking from a different perspective. So why are we talking about this today? Well, and then we've got a fig tree and yes, Trish.
Well, I think we're talking about the end of the world because like the Christ child's about to be born. So here's all the gloom and doom. And at the end of the month, there's the hope.
So again, we go back to hope. Yes, Jacob.
Maybe we're talking about it now because it's gonna happen on God's birthday, maybe Christmas.
Christmas. Yes. Yes, exactly. Christmas is when we celebrate the birth of the Christ child. You're absolutely right, Jacob.
Maybe it could be when it ends. I don't know.
No, I kind of hope not. Maybe. I mean, we never know really when the second coming is coming. I'd like to celebrate Christmas this year. So we'll see. So then we have this idea of Jesus coming. We have the Advent season of this birth of this Christ child, this little baby who is a person of color, who is on the fringe, who is
Immigrant?
Hmm?
Refugee?
a refugee, absolutely. And then we have his talking about his death. And I keep hearing a resemblance of hope that's being spoken of today. And I find that as I read in these scriptures, that it says, stand up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. What comes to mind for you with that? What comes to heart for you in that?
Jesus is coming.
Jesus is coming.
Not to be afraid.
Ooh, not to be afraid.
Redemption is coming.
Redemption is
It's
coming.
the hope again.
It's a hope. So I find myself wondering, what does it look like for you? What does it feel like for you to envision standing before Jesus the Christ? With everyone else aside, all earthly manner set as a backdrop, what does it look like? What does it feel like for you to stand completely?
Relief comes to mind.
Relief. Yeah.
Thankfulness that you believe.
Thankfulness that you believe. What are the words that you hope that Jesus says to you?
Welcome. Rest.
Rest. Oh man, you were on earth. You must be tired.
I'm
Right?
gonna go take a nap.
Marcia.
So that would be supposedly the total end of the human race, gone forevermore. Only our spirits will be with the Lord in heaven.
That's a very declarative question, Marcia. What do you think?
Well, reading this passage is kind of confusing when it says heaven and earth will pass away. So what, it's kind of leaving a unknown area. If earth is gone, heaven is gone, where are we?
With God.
Well, I know with God, but that would be the end of the human race then.
We're all stardust.
Possibly. Maybe.
Or will you create us all over again?
I think what you're leaning into is an area that maybe there isn't an answer to. Now, there will be many who try to answer this question. Where is this? Where is the certainty of what's happening? And sometimes I even found myself saying like, oh, I'm a little reluctant on preaching about this today because this is the kind of talk that's embarrassing, because a lot of pastors get up and they talk about the end of the world to induce fear in their congregation, to induce fear and promote that as a way of having people follow a certain path of Christianity. But Marcia, what you're bringing up is something that I can't answer with certainty. It's a mystery.
Well, I mean, there's nothing else in the Bible that says. I know there's supposed to be a new heaven. But I don't understand. This is the first time I've heard this passage about heaven and earth passing away. Because I always thought God was going to make a new earth. Or I mean, a new heaven on earth.
So maybe therein lies some truth. Earth is one way, heaven is another. Both will disappear, maybe there's a hybrid. So what you're saying could be true. But you know what? This is great. I love the questions. I love the questions because I believe in the mystery of God. So we can search this out. I highly encourage you to keep searching and find out what resonates for you. Yes, Sean.
I always looked at something like this, especially when Jesus was talking. He was being more prophetic about what his personal journey, and the heaven and earth passing away. He was going to be gone, but his words would always be here. And I always kind of looked at, this type of thing being more of that time where he was more of an apocalyptic kind of preacher, but it wasn't the whole world. It was this thinking, this kind of the thoughts of and the religion of the Jewish religion at the time, and all that going on, the government, Roman government, all that was going to pass away. It's kind of what I always did that as, because once we get talking to end times and stuff, I start having flashbacks to my childhood.
Yes.
These churches that were just like, it's all going to come to an end. You need to learn how to till the fields because you can't go to a grocery store.
Right. Exactly.
Look at the time and the place. When was this written? Who was he talking to?
Right, this is the Lukean community, the Gospel of Luke, which is often known as the white-collar gospel. So Luke was a physician in writing this. This community at the time, according to certain commentary, was a community that was on the outskirts. They were already dealing with poverty. They were already dealing with sicknesses and such. And so here's this even more like doom and gloom. And yet, right afterwards, where does this fig tree come into play? Right? Do you remember reading about the fig tree? Yes? So why? Why a fig tree? Why do you think? What was that, Jim?
Because he said it would never bear fruit.
Actually, let's go back and look at that. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. As soon as they sprout leaves, you can see for yourself and know that summer is already near.
Oh.
So also when you see these things taking place, you know that the kingdom of God is near.
Hope.
Woo! Hope. Right? Rebirth. Absolutely. I started to get curious about fig trees and preparing for this. Why a fig tree? And I found something interesting about fig trees I did not know before. Fig trees fall into a certain category of a tree in which there's a blossoming, but they have to wait for a certain time. The flowers blossom on the fig tree, and as they continue to blossom, they're not ready. The blossoms grow together, and that's what creates the fig. So it's many coming together to produce a fruit that is sweet. Doesn't that sound like what we were talking about earlier? Right? Yes, Jacob.
Well, going back to the actual passage that we read, it said that we have to keep an eye out for something, and I remember on the internet it said when the sun gets old it turns blue because it's like the sun's dying, and maybe he means we have to keep an eye out for the sun.
Maybe. But I certainly don't want to stare directly in the sun. That's an interesting
Could
observation.
it be in reference to the Son of God? Keep in mind that's the Son of God.
It's true. Maybe. Who's had a fig? What does it taste like?
I don't like it.
That's honest. I don't like figs. Right?
The fig Jews are good.
So what?
Very sweet.
They're very sweet. They're super sweet.
Yeah, they're very sweet.
Super sweet.
But they're really good grilled.
They pair well, right? It pairs well. It's really sweet. Have you had the difference between a fig Newton and an actual fig? Right? What's the difference there? Can you taste the difference? Right? Yes. Hope. How sweet it is. I love the James Taylor song, How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You. Right? But then I also give pondering and thought to this fig tree growing. And I think about growth and how painful growth can be. Right? Who's had a growing experience that was challenging and painful? Yes, absolutely. Ooh, and when we start growing together in a community, it can be painful, right? As we grow as a congregation, as we grow in our world as a Christian denomination, as we grow in an ecumenical sense with the larger Christian, and as we continue to grow in community with many faith traditions and all of God, we've got these different levels of growth in which we go through. We see. And rarely have I had a time of growth that was not challenging and struggling and moving forward, but was so worth it. And I would assume that in your lives, as you leave these church walls and you go into your world, you're going to have people who think differently than you. Anybody? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Growth. Right? How sweet it is. It's not easy. We can look at these end times, and as Christians, what I feel is already being echoed by you because you are smart Christians. You're Christians who know how to engage this work. There's hope. As we continue to grow, and it can seem in our modern day that it is just full of darkness and doom, and people who don't know how to treat each other, and bigotry and hatred. I mean, the list can go on, right? You could probably add to these. It's really easy to look at that. And especially at the Christmas season, the Advent season, where we say, what is wrong with you? It's Christmas! Right? I know I've done that this week. This growth of new hope. One of our invitations that Christ gives to us is to find the light in the darkness. Where one may promote fear, and the story that we start with today has the potential to instill fear. Or do you choose to seek the hope? This Christmas season, this Advent, as we get ready to welcome this Christ child anew in our lives, not just a story that we remember, but as an active practice of preparing for this Christ child to come into our world, into our lives in a way that we've never experienced before. You have a choice to say, where am I going to see the sweet fruit? Where am I going to invite the struggle for growth? Looking for the hope, knowing that with God, all things are possible. And that growth is possible in a way that we personally can't predict. Let God do the work with you. Because if we trust it to ourselves, we don't reach our divinity. But if we invite God into that growth, into those places that are dark, and we all have them, we're human beings. We have times of getting angry, getting sad, grieving, especially at this time of year as well, when so many are joyful. And this is not necessarily an easy time for many. Invite God into those spaces and let the individual become one. Let it be fruit. And have the hope. As you move forward and you are kind and you are gentle with yourselves, I pray that you just take time during your week to ponder, what does it look like to stand before God at the end of this life, because ultimately, that's the most important thing. Will you be able to stand before a God and to hear the words, "I have missed you so much. I am so glad you're home. Welcome." What was that like for you? That's the God I hope for. And I hope that when I stand before God, I can say, "I have missed you. I'm so glad for what I have come to know about you in this world. But the love I feel right now is more greater than anything I could have possibly envisioned." And to me, that sounds like Advent. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
To contact the Menifee United Church of Christ, or for more information, go to menifeeucc.org. Thank you for listening.